What can I say? I kind of love internet drama. Hey y'all, David here. Today we're going to be talking about the time a Michelin-starred restaurant in Italy kind of broke the entire internet for a good few days. I'm sure we all are aware that high dining can be a really weird and unusual space. I don't think anything has quite captured that in the way that this one particular moment a few years back did. To put it simply, a travel blogger's review of a Michelin-starred restaurant in Lecce, Italy went viral. And it all kind of escalated from there. During a visit to Lecce, Italy, blogger The Everyorist decided to go to the city's only Michelin-starred restaurant, called Burros, I think. There's kind of like a weird apostrophe at the top I'm not quite sure what to do with. In this blog post, she described a 4.5-hour ordeal where they were served 27 courses with next to no food, and where it seemed like the actual meal never really showed up. To quote from the article, "Some courses were slivers of edible paper. Some shots were glasses of vinegar. Everything tasted like fish, even the non-fish courses. Nearly everything, including these noodles, which was by far the most substantial dish they had, was served cold. I've checked TripAdvisor. Other people who've eaten at Bros were served food. Some of them got meat and ravioli, and more than one slice of bread. Some of them were served things that needed to be eaten with forks and spoons. We got a tablespoon of crab. Other dishes included really horrific sounding things like rancid ricotta, not fermented, rancid. They checked, that's what they were meant to be. These weird little jelly balls that were infused with meat molecules, and perhaps the most horrifying of all, this kind of citrusy foam that was served in what they later learned was a cast made from the chef's own mouth. This thing is like some Lovecraftian monstrosity. That's disgusting. And they were expected to just kind of like pick it up and drink from it, you know, like just drinking out of the chef's mouth, as you do. Totally normal behavior. That chef's mouth, like serving dish thing, incidentally, is something you can buy on Bros's website if you want to. The entire experience was overall a nightmare. Things were not communicated very clearly to them. There were things in some of the dishes that members of the party were allergic to. Staff didn't really give them any substitutions despite that fact. This ended with them being escorted outside the restaurant. Thinking we were getting kicked out, we gleefully followed. Instead, we were led across the street to a dark doorway and into the Bros laboratory. A video of the shirtless kitchen staff doing extreme sports played on a large screen TV while a chef cut us comically tiny slivers of fake cheese. The entire experience was just bizarre, surreal, and it sounds like it was pretty unappetizing too. Now, this blog post and its accompanying Twitter thread went viral that day. It was covered on a lot of news sites as well. There's this one picture in the blog post where one of the blogger's friends is just like making a face, and I feel like this face just kind of says it all. Like, he's just like, what the fuck is happening? And I'm kind of like, yeah, me too. So yeah, all very well and fun, right? But when I first heard about this, I came out of it with a lot of questions. What was Bros? Why was the food so strange? Why were they served so little of it? What was going on here? So as such, I decided to do a bit of a deep dive. So I think the most obvious place to start, though, is with the food that was served. What's going on here? What are these weird concoctions that they were served, you know? And so in order to best describe what that is, we need to talk about molecular gastronomy. According to Science Direct, molecular gastronomy is, and I quote, "a movement that incorporates science and new techniques in the preparation, transformation, and artistic presentation of food. Examples of this can include a miniature apple that is made to taste like meat, cocktails and ice spheres, fake caviar made of olive oil, transparent raviolis, spaghetti made from vegetables, or instant ice cream." And, you know, as kind of ridiculous and weird as that sounds, it sounds kind of interesting to me. I'm not saying I'd want to eat stuff like that all the time, but I do see the appeal. Give it a try once, if I could afford it. I mean, I imagine a lot of this stuff's really expensive. Restaurants that specialize in this kind of cooking do exist, but what about Burros itself? Yes, molecular gastronomy is a thing. It explains some of the more experimental things going on with the cuisine here, but it doesn't explain the portion sizes or the actual choices made for the food itself. So I decided to look at Bros's website, and this was not particularly helpful. I learned they change their menu every 6 months. They have a sister restaurant and bakery, it seems, called Sista, because of course it is. And I also took note that they described their menu as avant-garde. Now, what that means is important, and we'll be getting to it later, so let's put a pin in that. That wasn't really enough for me, so I decided to take a look and see what Michelin's website had to say about this restaurant. And after getting onto the Michelin website, I was promptly reminded that it's really strange that a company that makes tires is also the company that gives out, like, food stars to restaurants, especially with this fucking monstrosity of a mascot. This thing terrifies me. But besides, like, some pictures of food, not much there. One last place I decided to look was reviews of the restaurant from other people who'd been. You know, maybe the everywhereist just had a bad experience. Maybe they really were out of food, like she jokes about in the blog post. I decided to look at the more positive reviews to see what about this place people actually liked, see what people got out of this experience that maybe the everywhereist didn't. We had an amazing experience at Bros. When choosing the restaurant, we had an idea of an atypical art restaurant. When we arrived, there was no public entrance. We had to ring a bell. The answering staff was dressed in a kind of militant security dress, and the atmosphere was kind of undergroundish fetish style. Look, I probably shouldn't say this, but speaking as someone who has been inside of more than one fetish club, I doubt it. Also, do you really want to eat the food if it feels like it's a sex club? I don't know, just putting that out there. Anyways, the review continues. If you expect another restaurant with typical Italian food, you are totally wrong there. But if you open to a new adventure, you will have an amazing food experience in a totally different way. Some of the grammar in here is really weird. Here's another 4-star review. The dining room is sparse, which leaves you rather unsure of what to expect as you are seated. I shan't go into too much detail in describing the courses, as I think the whole thing is largely meant to be a surprise. You can track the flavor combinations back to classic dishes of the region. Whilst exceptionally creative, I would say at times that the processes sometimes felt over-engineered and unnecessary. Personally, I felt there were too many dishes which included jelly-type textures. Jelly-type textures. Feels fun to say, actually. Jelly-type textures, jelly-type textures. Ew. Just ew. Here's another. We had a really great evening last night. Also, our 13-year-old boy enjoyed it a lot. Wait, what the hell did the 13-year-old boy think this was? Did he just like that it was weird? I have questions. This isn't helping. Despite all that, it seems like some people do get something out of going here, even if the everywhereist didn't. It's entirely possible maybe she didn't do enough research, didn't know what she was getting into, that kind of thing. Let's circle back to avant-garde, because I think that word, it really does help contextualize what's going on here. Avant-garde is a art movement, kind of art that's kind of difficult to explain. It's kind of a movement that's focused on shocking their audience. Performance and art that is designed to, like, elicit a feeling of uncomfort, like, just kind of like, ugh. It's hard to precisely put down, but when you see avant-garde, whether it be a movie, a theater production, whatever, you'll get what it is. Like, I think it's easier to kind of just describe the feeling that avant-garde is meant to elicit, which is kind of like this extreme discomfort, not necessarily being grossed out, but potentially being grossed out, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? I mean, if it doesn't, in fairness, it's very hard to describe what avant-garde is, and it's not super relevant to this restaurant, if we're being honest here. Whatever avant-garde is, something that makes me squirm and feel uncomfortable is not necessarily something I want when I'm eating food. And I also struggle to believe that this is just the everywhereist not getting it, for a lot of reasons. Their response is a good example of why. In response, they published what I can only describe as a manifesto. Chef Floriano would like to answer as follows, starting from a drawing. Being able to draw a man on a horse does not make you an artist. The result of your talent can be beautiful to look at, but it is not art. Drawing a man on a horse is the same as making food. Many people are able to make good food. Your grandmother could do it. My wife does it great. McDonald's knows perfectly how to make a hamburger that almost everybody likes. And the pizzeria around the corner does their job perfectly. Preparing food that is liked is like drawing a man on a horse. It is not that hard, but most people will admire you. Some people are great cooks. They make spectacular food. They have studied the history of food making and have taken years of lessons to make great dishes. The artist of this painting of a man on a horse has done the same. He's like the owner of a 3-star Michelin restaurant, a master chef. Here's the picture that he's talking about in this bit, by the way. It's a nice painting. It's a painting of Napoleon. The problem with this artist is that many artists have made paintings like him. I admire the quality. It's well done, but I am bored with spectacular paintings like that. The Louvre and the Prado and the Hermitage are full with such stuff. It's impressive, but it's shallow. Contemporary artists are looking for new horizons all the time instead. They discover the unknown. They doubt everything, including themselves. They research every boundary. They even challenge the concept of art itself. What is art? What if food? What is a chef? What is a client? What is good taste? What looks beautiful? What is a man on a horse? Does art have to be beautiful? Not necessary. It has to challenge you to understand. If it's beautiful, that's even better. Contemporary art does not provide you with answers, but offers you great questions. Contemporary cuisine should do the same. A chef should not offer easy answers, but challenge you with interesting questions. Contemporary art is not easy. The contemporary artist asks you to think about beauty, to doubt yourself, to trust his creative process, to follow his ideas. That's how revolutions are born. Here at Bros, we strive every day for avant-garde. We have undertaken this risk since we decided to return to our territory after international experiences. We invest to revolutionize it and make it grow with us. We would rather be attached to our work and the technical aspects of it. How can we respond? Only with our menu, because we are better with food than with words. We are used to talking with facts, working hard. We thank Mrs. XXX, I don't remember her name, for making us get to where we had not arrived. We are out of stock of lemon. Thank you very much. I don't even know where to start with this. The way pretension is just oozing from every word is almost impressive. The fact that he's like negging McDonald's by being like, oh yeah, they make a burger most people like. Your grandmother could make a good meal. What are you talking about? And to top all this off, the simple fact is, this is just him being like, wow, sorry you were so stupid you didn't get what we were doing, which is not mature. It's not. And it gets worse from there. In the replies to one of the Twitter threads about this, someone came forward talking about how they used to work at Bros. I worked with them for a while, experienced the biggest trauma of my life. I've never met such disrespectful people in my life. I still can't get rid of the effect of working 17 to 19 hours a day and the push-ups that the chefs forced us to do. I don't even want to mention how disrespectful and rude head chef Floriano Pellegrino is. Even though I reported him to the police, I got no response. He's constantly looking for interns. Everyone who comes because they torture everyone is running away from there. At the same time, Floriano, the head chef, same guy who started the restaurant and, wrote the Manifesto, posted like fake prison headshots to his Twitter. I don't know. And here's the thing. If you believe you're an artist and that what you're doing is truly challenging and difficult, you're gonna have to accept that some people are just not gonna be up to that challenge. And that's not their fault. It does not reflect poorly on them. And if a lot of people end up thinking that it's not worthwhile to pursue or to engage in, then maybe you're the problem. Your art is not a test someone has to pass. Suffice to say, this response made them look even worse. In a final blog post talking about the fallout from all this, the Everywhereist described the response her original blog post had, her shock at how widely it spread, and also some of the backlash she got. A lot of people kind of came forward and kind of accused her of maybe not understanding the culture or language of Italy, and that was why she had such a bad time, that she was just like an entitled tourist or whatever who didn't know what was happening. She's the daughter of an Italian immigrant. She's very connected to her culture. She knows the language. That's not what's happening here. And of course, she also talked about the obvious intense misogyny of the restaurant's response. Mrs. XXX. I still can't get over that. Mrs. XXX. What the fuck? And she's had experimental food before, so it's not just that this was so different that it shocked her and she hated it for that reason. The food was just not good. There's an embedded tweet in this post that I think explains this best. I'm all for food that gets customers to think, to step out of their comfort zone, as with any art. But a meal also needs to satisfy on a basic level, even if it's not conventional. Is there a place for a restaurant meal that punishes the customer? I don't believe so. Overall, I think that this is an experience that everyone can look back at and laugh at. I guess besides Floriano and the employees, he seems like he's abused. It's a funny look at the world of high dining and high art and how they can sometimes be so self-obsessed, they kind of hurt themselves. Would you go to Bros? Have you tried anything made with molecular gastronomy techniques? Do you think that what Bros is doing is actually quite interesting? I'd like to know, so leave a comment, please subscribe. I've got some really fun stuff coming up. And yeah, I hope y'all have a good rest of your day.